So tonight, our guest, is Shawnee Benton Gibson. Shawnee is the CEO of Spirit of a Woman Leadership Development Institute and the co-founder of the ARIA Foundation. Shawnee has over 33 years of admin, clinical, and executive coaching experience and expertise in women's leadership, reproductive justice, racial equality, trauma, and bereavement counseling. Her work in the performing arts arena and storytelling as mediums ignite transformation and initiate catharsis. Shawnee is also widely recognized and is the subject of the Peabody Award winning and Emmy nominated documentary Aftershock, which is streaming on Hulu. The film chronicles the journey of Shawnee and her family as they fight for reproductive justice in the wake of tragic and preventable death of Shawnee's eldest daughter, Shimani Makeba Gibson, due to maternal mortality. According to Shawnee, activism is a labor of love and liberation. And without further ado, I bring you Shawnee Benton Gibson.
So grateful to be here with all of you. I'm an artist and an activist. If we can go back to the first slide, I want to say some things about these notables. I have 15 delicious minutes. I want to make sure that I set a foundation so that your questions, which I'm so looking forward to, can be asked from the foundation of what we're committed to in this session tonight. So I had an opportunity to hold space for stories to be told by students at Harvard who are about to graduate from a media and medical program, their commitment to healthcare, their commitment to equity, their commitment to diversity and inclusion. So grateful that Harvard has a program like that, but it's not the norm, right? And so I want to call in the energies of Black women, especially Black women who were connected to the antebellum period, which is a fancy word for describing the enslavement of women and our people. Not sure how everyone identifies in the space, but if you're part of the diasporic experience, the African diasporic experience, if you have melanin in your skin, and even if you do not, you are connected to these pieces, these experiences, these threads that are part of the tapestry of American life for sure. And it's oppression and white supremacy are like a virus. They're insidious and they absolutely impact our well-being, mind, body, and spirit. And they definitely impact how we relate to worthiness and worth and how we relate to financial flow and abundance and manifestation of all kinds. One of the things I'm going to do tonight is to create another look, another view of abundance as far as Black women and women of color are concerned. And I look at these images as a manifestation and a demonstration of abundance. When I think about Sojourner Truth and her power of words and her courage and her willfulness, full of will to live, to be free. When I think about Harriet Tubman, when I think about the sister who has on white with that white head tie with her hands crossed, I think about midwives who caught not only our babies or babies of color or babies who were enslaved at the time, but also caught the babies of white folk and are part of that legacy because we're talking about legacy tonight. Of our people, of the grand midwives, which they also call the granny midwives. When I think about the soil and the earth, I think of abundance, and I think of the hands and the hearts that poured into the soil and grew the crops. And even though it was done under enslavement, great oppression and degradation and inhumane circumstances, there was a relationship that we had with the soil that allowed the soil to respond to our energy, our light, and our abilities, and our skill set, and our art, and our love. And so I just wanted to share that before we move forward. We're talking about abundance inside of a conversation about historical trauma and degradation. There is light, life, joy, and abundance, because that's just who we are as people and as people who identify as women and as womb holders, because our wombs are master manifestors in different ways. So we can carry on to the next slide. Beautiful. I love the fade in. So anytime I am leading where I'm able, I speak about face rights. Face rights is an opportunity to be seen, heard and felt in this space, which is a sacred space. Sometimes we're in spaces as leaders and we don't get a chance to be seen and heard or felt, especially felt, right? They want to know what your intellectual capacity and prowess is, and whether you have alacrity and, flexibility in reference to how you use your speech, but just our beingness. We shouldn't have to prove anything. What's abundant about us is the vibration that we carry, especially those who identify as women. And so on the left is the image that I use for Spirit of a Woman, which is the name of my company, as was stated in the bio. And I see, Laura, you're already ahead of us by picking a number. Thank you for that. But I wanted to acknowledge that the woman has growth coming from her crown, because women are deeply connected and strongly rooted to culture, to their people, to their children, to their partners, all the things. And the name of my company is Spirit of a Woman, and that's an acronym. So SOW is sowing, like growing. And we're talking about legacy building and planting seeds and being able to generate and have those seeds germinate into something that repeats itself and gives abundance and is about production. So I love that the woman from her lips, just like all of you may not say these things, but I'm going to say them for you, that we are so supernatural. Because we hold space the way that we do. There's no other creature on earth like the woman. We're so revolutionary. We're so powerful. We're so abundant. So it's a play on words, but it's definitely a living, breathing, realistic manifestation in our daily lives. And so, woman manifestors, I want to just acknowledge you for the abundant flow that you have. And when you've been dropping in the numbers in the chat, I want to take us back to the question above the number drop, which is, when you think of your worth, what comes up for you? And it might be that you don't consider it, but I'm asking you today to think on it, feel on it. And it's not just about money and dollars and cents and what you have invested, because we know that this group, the majority of you are investors and you do different things to build your portfolio. But there are many things that make us powerful, multifaceted beings in the world. So as you drop in the number, also drop in what you think of when you think of the word worth, and you as a connected energy, person, um, vibration, like in the world. So drop that in the chat, and I'll invite Zawadi or Evelyn to share what you have declared. Besides the numbers, what's worth your worth generate in you as you think about it, feel about it, intuit about it? Please drop in the chat, and I'll give a model. When I think of my worth, I think of community. I'm in a lot of networks, right? Once again, I just finished co-creating and telling stories and acting out those stories on stage. And there were tears, there was laughter, there was pride, there were deep, deep shares, there was talk of ancestors in that space. And those folks I just met today. So when I think of my worth, I think about my ability to conjure. And I also think about my ability to be able to have folks who are so-called strangers connect with me on a deep level and be able to share things that are near and dear to them and sacred and sometimes secret, right? So that's how much worth I have, that I am able to support people on their healing journeys, no matter how well or long they know me, because it's not about the length of the connection, it's about the strength of the connection. So Zawadi, any other shares around worth and what folks have declared about their commitment to talking about that in themselves?
I'm seeing my worth equals high value.
I
I'm
share.
worthy by divine right. And have I done right action to be worthy? Let's see. Uh, our work is our worth, and our worth is our work.
Mm-hmm.
When I think of my worth, I think of the monetary value placed on my ancestors and how I create my own worth now.
I share.
Ability to bring truth, enthusiasm, clarity, love, and transformation to community. Those are some of the things that we have so far.
Beautiful.
Anybody else? Yes.
Well, yeah, and keep bringing them. We're co-creating. I could not do this session without you and your cooperation. And before we move forward, I want to just start sharing with you that once again, when we think about legacy and we think about history, or we think about her story, right? Her story, what comes up when antebellum or the enslavement of our people, if you identify as a person that's Black, that has connections to the United States and the enslavement of our people. And it wasn't just here, like, the Caribbean, just different places. And there are different forms of enslavement and servitude that we have experienced. So when we think about these pieces, I want you to just know and understand that there's power connected to that. So I would love for anybody who is willing to share to come off mute and share what aspects of that experience of oppression, enslavement, servitude actually demonstrates abundance and our ability to manifest and build legacy. Anyone?
Let's see.
And we can pick someone.
Okay, let's see. Let me go back and take a look. I don't see any raised hands right now, so let's
I'm
get
big on
somebody.
volunteering people.
I know you are. Okay, how about Gina Jove?
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, I was actually just about to raise my hand, so thank you. So what you, Shawnee, can you just repeat? I think you were saying about how does that, coming from that background, kind of coming from oppression, how does that, what now? Help us
Yeah,
into, yeah.
going in the right direction. So
Okay.
when you think of manifestation, when you think of abundance, when you think of possibility, when you think of prosperity, how is it connected to that experience in time?
Yes, okay. So I feel like that is connected to, now that our manifestation, our abundance is connected to that period, because in during all of that, we were still generative, we were still imaginative, creative, and able to produce abundance. We had abundant joy somehow. We had spirit. We were able to pass this feeling of abundance on for generations and generations. So I feel like our ancestors were powerful manifestors. And because we're still here, like they were so abundant in their life force that we're still here because they did everything to wipe us out, but it
Sure.
just didn't work.
Thank you so
That's
much.
what came
Thank
up for
you,
me.
Gina. And please stay off mute. How is that connected to your beingness, Gina? Your capacity to manifest, your ability to be an innovator, your ability to create legacy for your clan. What are you doing that is a direct bridge to a Harriet Tubman or Sojourner Truth, and some of the others whose names we don't know, but they existed. So how is there a bridge between you and them? Because we're talking about trauma, but we're also talking about triumph. And that will be my focal point for today and this conversation about worth.
Okay. I would say, I'm gonna think. As a direct bridge, I would say one of the things that I do, that I've learned to do from my ancestors, is to talk, to tell the stories, to share the family history and the history of the culture. And yeah, that's one of the things that because I feel like that, for me personally, it enhances my self-worth. Like when I look at what the people that came before us were able to keep, because when everything was stripped away from them, they still were able to keep some enough to pass on to us. Um, I would say that that would be like the bridge for me, and that's what I try to create for I have two daughters, and I try to create that for them. Like let's always not forget who we are, where we come from, and who we come from, so that we can continue to sort of to, I would say, like, live into their legacy, I would guess. Like they weren't big talkers, they weren't big explainers, but to be able to recreate, not yeah, to recreate those feelings and pass them along from generation to generation so that we don't become disconnected from one another and from our ancestors. That's
Ashe.
just
Thank you, beloved. And I know you weren't anticipating that these questions would be asked, but one of the things about our ancestors is they knew how to improvise and be spontaneous.
Shay.
And they also knew how to create structures and to create routines so that things could happen consistently. Because, with the unpredictability of that type of life, not knowing what was going to happen day to day in reference to whether they were going to survive or thrive or have enough to eat, they were able to create ways that they could predict how much they prayed, how they interacted with one another. One of the things we know about that period is that the women, Black women, were at the center of plantation life. Now, some might say, well, shoot, is that something to brag about? They brought their experiences of collective connection and co-creation from the motherland. And even though hundreds of years passed, they were still able to maintain that. And the connections of the women on the plantations was amazing, that they were able to thrive and survive because of those deep connections, those womb connections, bleeding together and growing together and picking together and cooking together and visioning for a future together. That's what I love about them, that through trauma, they were able to still see the possibility of a future, a deep connection with the land, a connection with their great grandchildren that they would never meet. Now, of course, there were some that felt low about the experience, but for the most part, because we're still here, there was still fight in them. So I'm going to ask Sawadi if you can read some of the chat, because I know some folks said things about resilience and various things. So I want to make sure that we cover that before we move on to the next slide.
Okay. Being a truth speaker, I share my experiences to facilitate healing in others, and I do see we were resilient and creative. And if you have time, we have one more sister who raised her hand.
Oh, yes, please. And then we'll carry on because I know time is limited, but time is
Okay.
abundant. We can do a lot. So go ahead.
Terry Ruffin, you can come off
Uh,
mute.
uh, I'm having trouble. Uh, oh, good evening. As I was thinking, I thought about endurance, perseverance, adaptability, and a willingness to continue to fight for justice. And I feel as though I have and I continue to try to incorporate these aspects into my daily life and how I view the world at this time.
Shay, and all of those go a long way. Once again, looking at the sister on the left hand side and just how from her crown, all of this abundance and life is sprouting, and from her breath, the way she speaks and her mindset, trusting that she has all of those seeds to sow. So, what you just shared is a demonstration of that. So, now that we've talked about worth a bit, and we've also selected our numbers. If you haven't selected a number between 1 and 5, not 7, not 10, but 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, we can carry on to the next slide. I just want to reinforce what we've been talking about. And Zawadi, I left a message for you, a private message.
Okay,
So,
I see it.
all right,
I
wonderful.
will give you a response.
Thank you. So Afrofuturism is something that was coined by Octavia Butler. If any of you have read any of her material, you know that her works were mighty. For me, she was like an otherworldly being. She would create these magnificent characters, and she would blend the characters that were human with aliens, and special powers were bestowed to these Black characters, and a lot of the women were heroines. And so when I think about an Afrofuturistic world back then during the antebellum period, I think about folks like Sojourner Truth, who were visioning a world that they couldn't see tangibly, but have probably dreamt about. I think about Harriet and her spiritual gifts and the visioning. If you saw the movie about Harriet, that she would go into these spells, and some people are like, oh no, she was delirious. It was just a medical condition. But I'm a believer that she had an accident that opened up her spiritual gifts. So Sojourner demanded reparations for slavery. through land redistribution, just believing that if the land was bestowed to us, that we would have a future that would keep giving and giving. She knew what happened during the antebellum period and what white people and the enslavers did with land, and how they utilized Black bodies to till the soil and to harvest the crops, and how they were able to generate and keep their property and, you know, their lifestyle going and flowing. So she knew and understood that the land, not just by capitalism, because that's what that represented, and patriarchy, but also just by the relationship and the connection with spirit, with the power of the land and how it was able to generate. So she knew to ask for that. And that's amazing. Not necessarily our folks having the education that we have, but just this deep connection and intuition and just common sense that allowed them to flow and go and manifest abundance. So following the end of their enslavement during Reconstruction, Sojourner Truth argued that enslaved people helped to build the nation's wealth and therefore should be compensated. I want to invite you all that part of your mental well-being is to even lean into the fact that that's not over, right? The idea of reparations can come in many forms, and you utilizing this sacred time, this fifth industrial revolution, to tap into a space that isn't necessarily designed for you, or where there wasn't a direct invitation for you to enter, is a demonstration of your deep connection to Sojourner and her truth. So we want to make sure that we take back what has been taken from us: our freedom, our brilliance, our longevity, our resilience as a people, our craft, our innovation, our creative flow, our deep spirituality. Like, Sojourner wasn't successful, you know, in getting the reparations, but it's not over. But she had an understanding of her worth and her voice and the worth of her people and the worth of the land that spirit created for us to till and steward as a people. So let's carry on. I want to say something really quickly about the next slide, and then we're going to go to an exercise about worth. So this is someone that we don't speak about as much. So after Reconstruction ended or was cut short, African Americans or Black Americans were left without property, without foundation, without deep connection. However, once again, our abundance was our connection to each other. And some women and families went and did something called ingathering, trying to find their folks that were sold off and lost, trying to find their way. And Black women took the lead in the movement to make sure that we had access. You all are part of that legacy. You all, despite the trauma that they experienced and even the trauma that you've experienced in this time and space, have the opportunity to shift dynamics by being fully invested in the Disruptor DAO. I love that it's called Disruptor, because you are not going to allow the trauma of our ancestors to stop and block flow and innovation and opportunities to manifest abundance and be, you know, part of the building of a legacy for generations to come. That's what Callie House did for us. And that's what Sojourner and Harriet and all the folks, and depending on who you are and where your people are from, that's what your great, 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 great grandmother did as well. When they opened up their wombs to have babies, even after all of that trauma and even after being set free, and I'm doing air quotes over here, that means that they trusted and believed that they could heal and they could carry on the next generation. So Callie wanted to make sure that the elderly, the infirmed, those who weren't able to take care of themselves, maybe some had mental health issues, because we're looking at Mental Health Month, you know, that they were covered adequately. So she started National Ex-Slave Mutual Relief, Bounty, and Pension Association in 1897, gathered thousands of formerly enslaved people to press the U.S. Congress to pass legislation to award pensions to freed people. You are part of an abundance manifesting legacy. And we just want to make sure that you remember, because we've forgotten who we are and whose we are. No matter what, we are able to manifest and think outside of the box and what do you call it? Forget what I wanted to say. Defy the so-called odds. Sometimes what man means for evil, spirit means for good. We can carry on to the next slide. Thank you. So I want you to look at these numbers, these words. So if you picked a number between 1 and 5, W is 1, 2, O is 2, R is 3, T is 4, and H is 5. So that means whatever the number is, this word corresponds, or set of words corresponds with it. So I want to spend the next few minutes that we have, and then I'll open up for questions, just owning that you intuitively selected this particular word or set of words to speak to you and your relationship with your trauma, and then also your relationship with your capacity to build legacy and manifest abundance. So if you got W for womanhood, that means who you are and the power that you yield will depend in your ability to heal from trauma, and historical trauma will depend on you owning the power of your womanhood and really standing in that, operating from feminine flow. And I'm not talking about gender expectations and those concepts that we've been taught since we were little: wear a dress and wear lipstick and walk a certain way. I'm talking about the power of feminine ingenuity, feminine flow, feminine manifestation. So that's what the call is for you tonight. If you selected O, that means optimism and openness are what you're charged to work the muscle for, so that you can once again transform trauma into possibility and legacy. What do you mean? You might say, Shani, what do you mean optimism and openness? Sometimes, even though we're doing things to manifest, we might be investing, we're not necessarily optimistic people. We don't speak from a place of possibility and openness to the world opening up. Even when things are going wrong, we might be like, oh, see what happens. We are inviting you to operate from a space of optimism, because despite what was going on with our ancestors and the trauma they experienced, they were still optimistic for the future, especially Harriet and Sojourner and some of the folks that we're talking about. If you got R, or the number 3, responsibility, the ability to respond to opportunities when y'all get an alert that, a particular stock or crypto is available, or an opportunity is available for you to go someplace or do something or partner with somebody, you take responsibility, you respond. And then also, if something happens that's low vibrational, you take the opportunity to respond to that. Responsibility. We all have the ability to respond. We just don't always choose it. So that's the muscle to build to shift trauma and create legacy. Truth telling. If you got number 4, it's T for truth telling. So tell yourself and others the truth, because in order for us to manifest and keep abundance, we need to be honest, or think authentic and true. So telling the truth is a challenge for some people, like fully being authentic. And so we invite you to work that muscle. And number 5, last but not least, we ask you to harness healing and hope, because we're talking about trauma and legacies that are connected to oppression, white supremacy culture, patriarchy, capitalism. So we invite you to consider that if you're able to harness and ride out on the wave of healing and hope, that you'll be able to get to the other side, and your grandchildren's grandchildren will prosper because of the sacrifice that you're making now. Your worth, you're worth it. Your worth is connected to doing this work. Your worth is connected to your ability to take life and legacy to the next level beyond what your ancestors did. So I'm going to open up for questions if folks have them. Zawadi, if that is okay. I know I'm moving quickly, but y'all are very savvy, and I can slow it down a little bit, but I know that, we're pressed for time, and I want to make sure that I'm being accountable. So Zawadi, wherever you want to go in reference to folks who want to ask something or share something.
Okay, so that's perfectly okay. And let me just say to everybody, we do apologize for starting about 5 minutes late. And if we have anybody who'd like to ask a question or make a comment on what they've heard and talk about how it relates to them, now's your time. Okay, so I don't see any hands at the moment. Oh, Adam, please. I see Adam, and I see Laura, and then Gina.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Wednesday so far. What I want to say about this is this whole thing is that it's all about reclaiming what we already have, and and acknowledging our own power each and every day, and get out of everyone on one else's way as far as what they got to say about us, or what do they have to say, because we can never control what they have to say. We can only control what we do on a daily basis, and how we show up in the world, and how we can heal ourselves on a daily basis, not just because we have problems or whatnot. So I like this conversation, because it's all about creating wealth, and wealth starts from within. And I'm complete the mic.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
Yes, I'm here. Greetings, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Shawnee. There are really no accidents in life. Number 4, truth telling. I just written in in the chat about being a truth speaker. And this morning I did do the presentation and I shared some truths. And after the presentation, a sister called me crying because she said, "You allowed me to cry. You allowed me, and I'm going to share this secret with you." And that was really, really powerful. It made me feel like I touched someone. With that, I'm complete. Thank you.
Shay, I want to quickly say that this is not mine. For many years, I worked in the field of substance abuse education, prevention, treatment, and recovery. And one of the things that they would say in the 12-step space is you're only as sick as your secrets. So in order for you to heal, you must release the secrets. And more often than not, the secret is not on us, right? If somebody violated me sexually, the secret is the perpetrators. It's not mine. So we take that on and then we hold, and we make ourselves sick. And it's hard to fully embrace possibility and abundance if you're not well, if your vibration is low. And even if you do manifest abundance, how you treat yourself and it will be low vibrational if you're not doing your work and releasing the secrets that we harbor in other people's secrets that we keep, and the impact that it has on our minds, bodies, and spirits when we release them. So thank you.
Ashe. Thank you.
And our third person was Gina.
Yes. Okay. Um, Thank you so much for all of this, and kudos to you, Laura, just real quick too. Thank you, sis. But optimism and openness were the two that I chose number 2, and the optimism and the openness. And I was wondering what does that mean? And so thank you for clarifying. That it's something that muscles that I need to work on, because yeah, that really hit home for me. It really, really hit home for me working on those two things. So I just wanted to share that and my gratitude for being here. And thank you, Shawnee. And I'm
Yes.
complete.
Yeah, and I don't want to stay off mute, unmuted, please, Gina. What do you mean, especially as it relates to financial flow, right? What's optimism and openness have to do with your manifestation or lack thereof, as it relates to finances and trauma, and like, please say more.
Um, for many, well, I was always working from the space of pessimism. That's just the way it was just my natural, what I thought was my natural set point was pessimism. And maybe in the last 10 years or so, I realized that I could shift it, and I don't have to be pessimistic. I can have hope and be optimistic. But so I was also opened up the flow, like monetarily too, of not always expecting disaster, just and that there might be setbacks, but that doesn't have to be the end of everything, and that you can't come back from them. So as far as wealth and manifestation, optimism has been a big part of me being able to grow, financially. And openness is just the key for me, like, to being optimistic. Like if I close my mind and if I close myself down from ideas and people, then what's the point of trying to act like you're optimistic about something, but you're not even willing to understand something new, hear something new, so that you can take a chance on it. So I feel like saying yes to things has opened a lot of doors for me, and financially as well. Like it really has. I would never want to talk about finances because it was so mysterious to me. And being able to just understand that, okay, you don't know it, but that doesn't mean you can't learn it, and you can't be open to new ideas and information. And then, I guess for me, optimism goes along with trust, like then having to have the trust in people that are sharing information, and trust in my gut that, that when that person feels right and it resonates with me, to trust that feeling, and then, to lean into it instead of always like standing back and pulling away from new things, new ideas, and new people.
Thank you so much,
Always,
Gina.
think about the fact that if Harriet was not optimistic or open, if she didn't trust the land and trust spirit, a lot of us wouldn't be here. You know, she had to keep going back and back and back again. The level of optimism that took, and openness to possibility, even the possibility of her not making it back. Yeah, and that didn't stop her. So thank you, thank you. And I know you have ancestors in your tribe and your clan that you can pull from to support you as you build that muscle. So thank you, sis.
So one of our co-founders, Noe, is in the background letting me know that it's 8:11.
Okay,
So we
thank you,
thank you for
Noe.
hanging out with us. But I just want to, before we let you go, Shawnee,
Hmm.
what I didn't say earlier is Shawnee is the co-founder, along with a group of sisters, called Wake Up Everybody. The
Hmm.
Woo community is here strong. We thank you for coming on. So Shawnee, if you can, in about 30 seconds, say something about the Woo community, and we will definitely drop it in the chat.
All right. Because I trust my relationship with spirit, back in 2020, at the very top, when they started talking about COVID happening in the quarantine, I listened to spirit and decided to create a space and invite other people to join me so that folks would be covered virtually. I didn't know it was going to be as long as it was. I thought it would be maybe 30 days. And so folks said yes. And about 25 of us started to create the Wake Up Everybody virtual community. We did it for 100 days straight. And then we took a break, redesigned, and then kept going. And yes, today I think was 1,109, if I'm not mistaken, of sessions. And we do it 5 days a week. It's on Zoom and Facebook Live. And mind, body, spirit transformation, abundance conversations, how to garden, like anything that you can think of, cook food, do makeup, like we've done it. And we're still growing and transforming. 1,109 days of healing and transformation. So talk about worth. Folks think it's worthy to spend that time, and facilitators think it's worthy to share their time without being compensated monetarily. It's been an amazing journey, and my life is totally transformed. And some of you are in it, and I didn't know you before Wake Up. So I thank you, and I invite you to join us.
So there are links in the chat. I put the Instagram link and the website link. So please go and check that out. The information has been powerful, and it's the place that many of us met Alicia Holmes, who is the founder of Journey to Wealth, and who JTW is our sister organization.